I didn't actually try the Finnish lifestyle of drinking alone during the cold, snowy winter, but welcome to the Nordics. Finland to be exact.
Can I into Nordic?
Not today, Estonia.
Oh no.
But welcome to Estonia as well. To a smaller extent though. So the main star here is Finland, the land of the ice rednecks, the Swedish riders, the balls of the Nordics, the gayest country in Northern Europe. Yes, gayer than their meatball-sucking neighbors.
I'm from Finland, I'm an alcoholic.
Northern Mongolia, the freezer of Europe. I really couldn't find a better place to spend our hard-earned money because Finland's obviously one of the cheapest countries in the world and also one of the happiest based on some statistics. So except of saunas, vodka, Moomin, and korvapusti.
Hehehehe korva.
Hehehe pusti.
What does Finland have to offer? Not much, to be honest. Which makes you wonder, does Finland even exist? I mean, it could have all been an elaborate setup by the Swedish deep state in order to claim that there's a neighboring country worse than them in ice hockey, Eurovision, and the Olympics. I mean, they say that Santa's village is located in Finland, and it's like an 8-hour train ride from Helsingfors. But yeah, right. In 8 hours, they could have easily just brought us into the North Pole where it's actually located. So why even go to Finland in this economy, you might ask? Well, there was a girl who I used to work with. We were just beginning, we just became friends, and then from there, my brain a couple years after that. I couldn't contain my feelings, but I realized that just admitting it to her, I told her that I couldn't just chill with a person. And after all that, I wanted some form of escape. So I just thought of a random city and booked a trip to Helsinki. So in order to disprove Finland's existence, I needed a plan. So I disguised myself as a tourist travelman and also brought some people, even though useless, to bear witness of this expedition. So let's start with the tall guy. Let's just call him Phoenix. He might be intimidating at first, and not because of the color of his skin, you racist, but once you get to know him, he's actually goofy as fuck. He's also bad luck incarnate, and the sole reason we got charged 500 euros in damages. And then we got my sister from another mister, Sage, who I have traveled with a lot, and it won't be the first time you'll see her. Notes: can't take a shit abroad, stinky farts, and claustrophobic. The guy in the middle is me, the best person you'll ever meet. Perfect, no flaws, no girlfriend, no further comments, period. This is my neighbor, Omen.
He is barely my assholes.
The Pinterest boy, always broke, he loves his car a lot, and always going for emotionally unavailable girls, unstable sexual. And last, but also the least when it comes to height, the short girl with glasses, aka negative eyesight, crippled vision, travel-sized idiot, vitamin C deficient, literally short-sighted. I could roast her all day, but got no more time to spend. But let's call her Jet. So we all landed in the Swedish airport of Helsingfors, and we got into the train, watching the snowy forest of Sweden. But for the rest of this video, I'm going to be hypothesizing that Finland actually exists. So instead of Swedish and Sweden, I'm gonna be calling them Finland and Finland. But of course, that's just a theory.
Slurp that dick!
Theory. So the train took us to Helsinki Central Station, where we saw 4 titans guarding the walls of the central station, but I guess they were too stoned to even do the rumble. We took advantage of the city's superior tram system to get to our Airbnb apartment. But in order to find the keys, we had to go to a completely different building across the street, which I remind you, there was snow everywhere, and we were stupid enough to go search for the keys all together while bringing our big-ass suitcases wherever we go. After baking beds, we went out for some lunch. And as I said in my Amsterdam vlog, I firmly believe that the best way of getting to know the country you're visiting is by trying their local food. So we immediately brought ourselves into a Vietnamese restaurant. Don't blame me. It's not like I'm the one who suggested it. Well, it was actually me. But the food there was really good. We got some banh mi, which could also be called because look at this buns, hon! Yeah! Some chicken wings, some pho noodles, and some mango mojitos for Phoenix, Jet, and Sage, which apparently got them really tipsy by the end of the meal. Once we got back home, we realized a huge mistake on our part, which was that we gotta share one bathroom. Because that meant that from the first day, we turned the bathroom into a battlefield. So this is the first offensive against the toilet nation, where 3 of us, with stomachs full and ready to launch an attack, went into battle. The first battle ended up into a stalemate. But don't worry, I'm going to update you for future battles as they happen. Oh, by the way, do you remember that I told you that they got tipsy from a mango mojito? Well, when checking the receipt, we found out that they brought us cocktails without the cock, which meant virgin mocktails. This is what alcoholes does to your brain, fools. Pretends to be drunk from a placebo drink, fool. Am I gonna cut this? Probably not. So after all that, we went out to Lidl to grab some snacks and some strong grape juice. But we couldn't find anything other than beer and wine. Sage though remembered that the Nordic country had strict alcohol rules. So just to confirm, we googled it and funnily enough, it was Finland. Is it because alcohol wakes you up from the illusion of being in a fake state? Anyway, we bought a couple of snacks and left our groceries in the Airbnb. And we headed out to the city center where we roamed around the main street, which had no traces of snow and oddly dry for some reason. I guess it was waiting for us to make it wet. Then we went to the Helsinki Cathedral, which was built from 1830 till 1852 as a tribute to the Grand Duke of Finland, who is Russian? So Finland isn't just a Swedish dick rider, but a Russian one as well. Although we climbed up to where the cathedral was, we weren't able to get in as it was closing. But before we went up those slippery stairs, we were at the Christmas market in front of the cathedral where most shops were closing at that time. But we did manage to grab some glogi so that we can warm our hearts and souls from this cold, cold winter. But the only thing hot enough to keep us warm was your presence. And since the group was still thirsty for alcohol, we roamed around the pier area looking for a bar to sit in, but all of them were booked for some reason. So we had to go back to the central area where we found a bar full of people, so we decided to sit there. But the problem is that we're used to the superior, friendlier Greek service, where we expected them to treat us like kings and take orders from the table. But in Finland, just like in the rest of Northern Europe, the bars are self-service. So Jet went to the bar to order some drinks and food for the table. You saw that right. That's a bucket of strawberry margarita. But when Phoenix took a sip of the margarita, his mood changed and complained that it had no alcohol inside it. And as a certified barman, I had to test his claims. So I took a sip and indeed, I couldn't even taste the slightest hint of tequila. In a country famously known for depressed people getting drunk all the time. Allegedly a country. You would expect there to actually be alcohol in the drinks. We were furious after that, but instead of complaining to the manager, we took it on Google Maps where we saw that the reviews were already bad in the bar. And we added to the list of bad reviews. Después del bar, since I firmly believe that the best way of getting to know the country you're visiting is by trying their local food, we went to Taco Bell since it was already getting late and we needed something more filling to eat. We then headed home where Phoenix couldn't stop complaining because he didn't drink his minimum daily amount of alcohol. Sucks to be him, I know. So while everyone got to sleep, I was awake devising a genius plan for our second day. We got up early in the morning because we were all tired of this fake country. So we headed to a real country with actual history. Estonia. So I won't even bother telling you about the history of the country because there's a more qualified YouTuber who could tell you all about its history if he ever makes a video about it. It all starts in the Helsinki port and we were all shocked how modern it looked, and it resembled more of an airport than a port you could find in Greece. So we got into the ferry and I fell asleep. As we were nearing Estonia, we all decided that we gotta take some pictures from the deck and then a photo of my favorite celebrity animal. As we stepped foot into Tallinn, we immediately saw the character of the city, with the modern architecture mixed with some Soviet buildings, combined with a medieval town that has an interesting looking tower, which we had to take photos of every time we got even a step closer to it. So we head on our way to some cafe near the old town where I had the taste of some Estonian pastries like korv and something else that looks like it just got cream pie. We also passed by the Christmas market, which we couldn't resist the temptation of drinking some hot chocolate with Baileys at 9 AM in the morning. And so our next stop was the museum. To get there, we had to ride on one of these cute Soviet trams. As we were walking towards the museum, we had to detour in the Kadrioru Park, take some pictures. A lot of them actually. So we finally reached the museum. So my task as a designated photographer was to take picture of all of the art with my friends in front of it. That's because they are pieces of art, which made me realize that art can be ugly as well. I mean, look at this guy who pretends to be a dictator from North Korea. There was an area where everyone wanted to take a photo in, which had so many portraits of different historical figures that they wanted to be the center of it all. As if they have achieved something in their age as compared to the people behind them. Jesus Christ, I might have been roasting them a lot, but I swear to you guys that I love and care for them deeply. Personally, I was more interested in the Art Deco style paintings, Soviet art, and propaganda posters in the museum, especially this Lenin orb thing. Like, what could it mean? I also attempted to have a photo taken of me, but the person who took the photo doesn't even know how to take a good one, and the model is for sure too sleep deprived to be taken a photo of. Enough with the museum. Let's go to Kick in the Cook, where we mostly visited the underground area because the tower was closed during that time. And the tunnels used to be a medieval passage turned bunkers, turned homeless shelter, turned historical landmark. It was very odd being in those tunnels, not just because one of us has claustrophobia, but mostly because of mannequins in some of the rooms, which gave an eerie vibe to the place.
Mommy? No.
We were there for like 30 minutes because we were getting hungry and we had to catch the ferry back to Helsinki. So we went to dine in the medieval restaurant without the medieval cleanliness, but the vibe from the decor to the menu, to even the toilets, was very medieval. The food was amazing. They even served bear meat, which I really wanted to try, but my friends weren't too keen of that. So instead we got deer meat and some other stuff, and all was pretty tasty. But before we left, a bard folk band started playing an old song. Oh, sorry, wrong clip. Also, huge props to the waiters there. They really played their roles well, acting as if they were actually from the medieval era. And I'm glad that we helped our waiter feed his Japanese horse. It was getting late, so we swiftly grabbed our souvenirs and we had to follow the Finnish tradition of importing alcohol from Estonia. We tried to find our way to the port and we stumbled to the Christmas village again, where we got some more hot cocoa with Baileys, and we walked fast to the port 15 minutes before the boat was leaving. Thankfully, we did reach there in time, and as we arrived back to Helsinki, we were greeted by a very rude boat who was not so welcoming of us who came from Estonia. We got there at around 10 at night, and you might have thought that we were done for the day and ready for some sleep because we were awake from 5 in the morning. Amateur mistake of you thinking that. We looked for bars that are open till early in the morning, and the only ones open were karaoke bars. So we headed to one of them, and in the beginning, we were happy just being spectators. But there's no way I'm just gonna sit there to just watch and let down my Filipino ancestry. So Phoenix and I somehow convinced Jet and Sage, not Omen though, because he had some dignity left in, to sing a song in front of strangers. Which turned into 2. Which turned into 3. Into 4. Not like I'm a great singer or anything, but all of my stage fright disappears when I get to sing. But sadly, all good things must come to an end. And to close it off, my sister and I decided to sing in Spanish, and obviously we nailed it. So before I continue on with the trip, I'm going to briefly explain the alleged history of Finland, because if true, then Finland is just a masochist embodied into a country. But they really had to stick on that grind set in order to survive, if true of course. Their origin story started around 9,000 years ago when the OG Finns, who were actual f***ing noobs, were deciding that hunting for food and gathering resources in a place that's frozen for like half of the year was a good idea. As time went on, these early Finns started trading with their Viking neighbors as they were forming their own culture but without being united, turning them into literal Minecraft villagers. Then came Sweden, like that one uncle who spreads his religion and influence that by the late 13th century, Finland was fully Christianized and first acquired the submissive position under Swedish control, with the Swedish language and laws being the norm. Cities like Turku were established and cool-looking stone castles were built. However, the Finnish-speaking locals found themselves lagging behind as the Swedish-speaking elite took over. The 17th century for Finland was really devastating for them as a country, as it was hit by a series of brutal wars, famines, and the harsh conditions of the Little Ice Age, basically a never-ending boss battle against Mother Nature. The wars between Sweden and Russia, especially the Great Northern War, had Finland's population decrease immensely. An absolute catastrophe, I'm telling you. Some Finnish men voluntarily fought with their tops, the Swedes, because they really just love them Swedish meatballs. By the 18th century, during the Finnish War, Russia fought the Swedish and Finnish, but Sweden lost. After the war, Finland suffered Stockholm Syndrome and switched sides because as they were offered more autonomous control as the Grand Duchy of the Russian Empire. This period also saw Finland experiencing a cultural revival with the publication of the Kalavela in 1835, which is basically Finland's version of them Ask Reddit compilations with a Minecraft parkour background, filled with some actual epic tales from Finnish folklore, but without the degeneracy of Reddit. By the late 19th to 20th century, Russia started restricting Finland's autonomy, which led to the Finns discovering nationalism. On December 6, 1917, Finland declared independence, but the journey was far from over because the next year, there was a civil war between the Reds, who wanted a more socialist state, and the Whites. Not those Whites, who were more conservative than them gun-glorifying Americans living in the middle of the farmland with them big-ass pickup trucks to compensate for their dick size. Sorry for that rant. The Civil War left deep scars on Finland, with the Whites ultimately claiming victory. The interwar years were all about rebuilding and fortifying the new nation while keeping an eye on them goddamn Soviets. World War II was a defining moment for Finland, as they were fighting solo while being outnumbered against the Soviets in the Winter War, and then allying with the Nazis during the Continuation War. But then they pulled an Italy fighting against the Nazis in the Lapland War. Although they had to give up some territory, Finland at least managed to maintain its independence. After the war, Finland adopted the strategy of being Switzerland, balancing between the West and them goddamn Soviets. This strategy, known as Finlandization, allowed the country to level up into a prosperous welfare state, avoiding much of the Cold War drama while becoming a beacon of happiness and stability.
Parasta terveyspalvelua lähellä sinua. Kys.
Today, Finland is thriving, being known for having one of the best education systems in the world, a high quality of life, and being the happiest people on earth. Or at least that's what we're being told by the Swedish deep state. So before I continue into day 3, I want to mention that we left at 4 AM from our mini concert at the karaoke bar, searching for a taxi or any form of transportation to get back home. But there was nothing around. So we were forced to go back on foot, and those were probably the slowest 28 minutes of our lives. Anyway, at the Airbnb, as everyone was asleep, Sage and I were having a conversation about our trips together, when suddenly, Phoenix has awoken from the dead to go use the bathroom. For him to go to the toilet from his room, he had to pass by the kitchen, the dining area, and the place where we left our shoes.
Great success.
On his way back to his room, he somehow tripped on his own shoe and fell onto a chair. Instead of helping him, Sage and I started dying of laughter. But since we are not terrible people, we did ask him if he was okay, while laughing. He said that he was alright, so he picked up the chair and went back to his room. But little did we know what that chair would do to us. 9 AM in the morning. So we all had to wake up as we needed to get ready to go out. First stop, the Design Museum, which was a place I really wanted to go because graphic design is my passion. And as we entered, the first thing we got to see was a freaking chair. So we had Phoenix sit on it, of course. As I was using a VR headset in one of the rooms, my friends left me. So I had to rush towards B. I meant rush towards the group until this bag caught my attention because it looked oddly American. But without me noticing, Sage was there a minute ago and left the smelliest fart, which was like a proximity bomb because as I took the picture, I instantly felt all of my nose hairs evaporating from the sheer smell of that stinker. I of course evacuated from that area before my skin gets ionized from the incomprehensible amount of radiation that Fart Cloud had, where I continued with the rest of the gang until we reached an exhibition of soft carpets. So, continuing with the rest of the museum, where Omens tried to raise up some mannequin,
Mommy? No.
some chairs, communism, more art, And we left the museum, but we also had the free access to the architecture museum, which was conveniently behind the design museum, which showed Finnish architectural styles during the different decades in the past century. Then we went to grab some lunch in some hipster cafe, which had some of the best healthy food we have ever tasted. We all got one of two chicken dishes, one with kelp and the other one with peanut butter sauce, which I don't know if drugs are strictly illegal in Finland, but damn, that peanut butter sauce was highly addictive, like it had fentanyl. Even Omen, the fastest eater in the group, ate it slowly just to enjoy the richness and flavor of that masterpiece. And as the sun was setting at 4 o'clock, we wanted to go take some pictures in a place with the colorful houses Omen saw on Instagram. And indeed, it was as seen in the pictures. Which is what I would have said, but this image you see right here, it's fake. Just like Finn, because this is actually how it looked like. We were pretty disappointed, but we had to move on. So we took the bus to get into the Tempeliakuyo church, which was an incredible sight to see from the inside, with a dogged rock serving as a wall for the church to be in. They also gave away free mini Bibles in Finnish if you want to have a book for Finnish hamsters to read. We went to buy a couple of souvenirs, but we had to rush back home for Sage to drop a number 2. So Jed and I went with her, leaving the other two to have their private time together. After getting some rest, since I firmly believe that the best way of getting to know the country you're visiting is yeah, you've heard this saying before. So we actually went to a Finnish restaurant and ordered almost every food on the menu. Sorry to all the vegans and Santa Claus fans watching, but we ordered Rudolph as well. But don't worry vegans, we didn't let him go to waste, as it was probably the best piece of meat we have ever put into our mouth, even better than Omen's and Phoenix. It was tender, melts in your mouth, and tasty as 11 out of 9. We'd eat Rudolph again. We somehow finished everything, including the desserts, which were some kind of Finnish cheesecake and also frozen lingonberries with caramel sauce. In the urinals, we spotted a very familiar face so that you can literally piss on that guy, in a non-kinky manner of course. So after devouring the red-nosed reindeer, we just hung out in a bar until midnight playing cards against humanity. So for the last day, we turned homeless. No, I'm just kidding. We just woke up early trying to warm up at a stall before we get into a boat to a UNESCO heritage site, the Suomenlinna, which was the second most impenetrable fortress in Europe, surpassed only by your mom, which in the end, I did get to pen. As we landed, I somehow led everyone into the residential area of the island, which was pretty empty and there was not much to see other than some houses. We later went back into the info building where we were later greeted by a Finnish lady who spoke the most Alpha Sigma language of them all. Literally, she spoke Greek. She explained to us a couple of things about the fortress. After a bathroom break, I actually found the love of my life in that store. Just kidding, it's just my glove. We started exploring the island, where we reached the military museum, where it had actual tanks and uniforms, a race horse, and propaganda posters of the time. Even took pictures riding a fighter jet mock-up, and we wore some army uniforms as well. There was also a showcase of a couple of different flags that Finland used in the past. Let's not talk about that one. Then we headed to the Suomenlinna museum, where we learned more about the history of the fortress. We then walked around and explored the island a bit more, where we took a bunch of pictures of the snowy landscapes. We did reach the King's Gate as well, but for some reason my phone's battery died and we just went back home and engaged in the battle against the toilet army. The sauna. The first thing I want to get out of my chest was the locker room experience. Finnish people have no shame when it comes to nudity. Because as I was taking off my shoes, sitting on the bench in this crowded locker room, a Finnish person on my left and another on my right decided that it was a good idea to get butt naked next to me so that they can change into their swim shorts. I was never so traumatized in my life. Just imagine being between two dangling schlongs less than half a meter away from your face. I know some of you would have loved that, but as a straight guy, it was quite uncomfortable. Enough of the locker room business. We finally got in a sauna, where there was one guy already inside who was the master of the sauna and knew the perfect temperature from the cells of his skin. He was the one responsible for adding water into the fire until the room reached 90 degrees in normal people units. And we also did this.
Oh my god! Oh! Fuck!
Based on the footage, you might think that you were watching some British lads having a beer more than they should have. But it was just us getting in the freezing water every time we got out of the sauna, which is apparently good for the skin and blood flow. By doing that, we remembered the quote from the guy we met in Barcelona, which went like, "Do you want to remember this for the rest of your life? Come swim in the Barceloneta in 7-degree weather." Well, it was negative 10 degrees in Finland, so get that, Lorenzo. Anyway, after the sauna, we went to a Nepalese restaurant and... Oh boy, my eyes were open to Nepalese food. It was perfect for a cold night after the sauna, but the day was far from over. By the way, props to the Finnish plumbing system. We headed to the karaoke for our final concert as it was our final day in the country. I don't have many clips from the karaoke this time, but just imagine me being mad furious at my sister for putting a song that starts like this. And having me sing it along with her barely doing any backing vocals, which really did kill off the vibe of the karaoke. Anyway, as a revenge, I decided that she should sing Water alone. But of course, I had to go with her on stage and actually sing it. Also, before all that happened, we got approached by a man in his 50s who was pretty friendly and gave us tips about Finland. And he was also offering us to try his salmon soup at his house, but we were leaving the next day. He was disheartened, but he did give me his phone number for some reason. Anyway, as we were waiting for our Ubers to get back home, Jet hit me with a slap. Figuratively. She told me that I was gonna get the did it treatment, and I was too oblivious to notice. And I was like, ain't no way. But he was indeed too close to me, focusing just on me and ignoring my friends. And his try my salmon soup ploy might just be a code name for trying his dick till it comes. No. No. Ew. Sure, I meant that I wanted to try a local dish, but I didn't mean that. I don't like men. I'm too asexual for that shit. The next day we left Finland. And everything went good until we reached the Greek airport, where we received a message we didn't want. So context. On our final day before we went to the karaoke, we noticed that the chair the Phoenix had fallen onto was broken. So we messaged the Airbnb owner that Phoenix tripped on the chair and broke it. And he was like, "Don't worry, I hope your friend is alright. I'm going to check the chair in person after you guys check out." As we landed back home, I saw a bunch of messages coming from the Airbnb, and so I immediately checked. And there were photos of the floor being damaged in the area where Phoenix fell, and floors being dirty throughout the apartment from the dried out snow water. Then we got a 500 euro charge, and we were surprised by the amount, of course. So we did ask the owner for a breakdown of the costs, which basically were 100 euros for the goddamn chair. When I searched it up, the prices were indeed 100 euros. Then, a 100 euro cleaning fee because Phoenix and Omen couldn't contain their nicotine addiction and smoked inside the apartment balcony and left traces of ashes. It was stated that it was prohibited by the apartment rules. Then another 300 euros so that he could replace the oak floor that was damaged from the fall. The scratches were quite faint, to be honest, but the owner said that it would have costed him 3,000 euros or more to replace them. Well, in the end, we did pay 100 euro each. Phoenix, of course, complained about the damage fee, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So yeah, that was our trip to Finland. It was a mess, but it was still super fun, and I wouldn't change a thing from the trip. Except of the damages part. It was nice to finally experience actual snow and negative 10-degree weather. It was also nice to get a chance to go into one of the Baltic, not Nordic, countries. I was always interested in the history of the post-Soviet countries and how they came to be. Another highlight is having our first live concert as a group in Finland. Hope it is the start of our blossoming careers. And yeah, I'm going to have my closing words in Finnish, so excuse me. Kiitos kun katsoit. Ja muista, että Suomi ei ole oikea maa. Hey guys, it's been a while. I swear I've been doing good since Amsterdam. I feel thirsty right now. Let me have a sip of this water. Voin paremmin nyt. Voisin mennä saunaan kumpalan. Onko se nimi Virta vai vasta? En tiedä. Perkele saatana. I think I finished. Esti, aina mun saada Helsinki Pramille.